The In Conversation podcast series, with author Nigel Beckles.
Welcome to the podcast.
Please like the podcast and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.
Have you experienced several failed relationships or been through a divorce? How can you avoid making the same mistakes again? How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes is out now.
Hi, my name is Nigel Beckles. My new book is packed with practical and common sense strategies that you can use to make better relationship choices.
Now you can discover the dangerous myths about love. If your relationship expectations are realistic, why you could be falling in love for all the wrong reasons.
How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes. It's a book that could change your life.
Available from Amazon.co.uk. Kindle version also available.
Get ready for takeoff.
Welcome back to my In Conversation podcast series. My guest for this episode is a relationship couple's financial coach, American Adam Kol. Hi Adam, welcome to my podcast series. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Nigel? Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Where do you reside at the moment?
I am in the state of Florida in the USA.
So did you grow up there?
I did. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but when I was 3, my family moved to the South Florida area. So for listeners who are not from Florida, I'm about an hour from Miami.
Well, I understand you have a law degree. So where did you study and when did you qualify?
I got my undergraduate degree at the University of Miami. So go Canes. That's my team. But and I studied economics and political science there. But then I went to Duke University in North Carolina, which I graduated from law school in 2013 and then got my master's finished in 2014. I technically became a member of the New York Bar October of 2014. And then after having a couple of jobs working as a lawyer, I decided to go a different direction and start my couple's financial coaching business. And so I actually put myself on retired status. That's what it's called in the state of New York, meaning I'm not practicing law and I don't have an intention to in the future, but I have decided I want to open up that route for a few different reasons. And so right as we were getting started with our conversation, I had to pause a video I'm watching to get caught up on my continuing education in New York so that I can become qualified officially again.
Well, you have experience as a tax attorney, financial advisor, and as you mentioned, a couple's financial coach. How did you become involved in that type of coaching?
Well, it really was this happy accident from all the life experiences that I've had. Several years back, I had this realization that there is a huge need at the intersection of relationships and money, love and money, marriage and money, however you want to say it, that it's one of the biggest stressors for relationships, that it's one of the top causes of divorce and separations. And there were and are very few people specializing in that. And I said, well, with my background, having done some financial advising work, having a master's in tax law, being a certified mediator and a coach, I said, I think I can put all of that background and knowledge together and create something that would benefit couples, save marriages, strengthen marriages, help families live better lives. And that's been what I eat, sleep, and breathe for almost 4 years now.
So what type of services do you offer to support your clients?
First of all, I have a ton of content across different social media platforms. I have a lot of videos up on a YouTube channel. I post daily, weekdays on my LinkedIn, Instagram, which are either Adam Kol or Couples Financial Coach, and my own podcast called the Couples Financial Coach Podcast. So those are all full of interviews and tips and all kinds of things to help you and your significant other get clarity around your finances, be able to work more as a team, and to have that peace of mind, right? Because finances can bring a lot of anxiety for most of us, whether it's managing them, not having enough money, talking about it, whatever the case may be, right? So the way that I work with my clients, I actually have a number of different programs, but they all cover the same curriculum because I think it's all essential. And so the general flow of it is start to understand your own relationship with money. And I'm talking about kind of like that inner relationship with money, how you feel about it, how you think about it, what experiences you've had, what you saw growing up, how they affected you. And this gets you and your partner talking about money without there having to be much conflict because you're just sharing. And then the goal is to figure out, where are you today financially? What are your most important goals? And then how can we build out a plan that's going to help you achieve them? So at its core, it's very simple. All the programs are designed to help you and your significant other talk about money in a constructive way and work as teammates, figure out, where are we today and where do we want to be in 6 months, a year, whatever time frame. And then let's work backwards. How do we get there? But while that's a simple enough explanation, it involves a host of different conversations, activities, videos, etc., to go through, because there turns out there are a lot of aspects and a fair number of complications around learning how to manage your money together, especially if you grew up in a country, a state, a society, a community, a culture where money was not something that was widely discussed, right? And certainly in the US, that is the case. Money tends to be a taboo topic. I remember a workshop participant once, she said to me that in her family, they would rather talk about sex than money, right? Like her mother would rather talk with her as the child about sex than money. Not when she was a kid, of course, when she was an adult. And I was like, wow. So that's how intense it is in some places. People are just that uncomfortable / they think it's impolite or whatever. By no means am I saying you have to go to a dinner party and tell everyone how much you paid in taxes or what your income was, but talking about it with your partner, with your significant other, with your spouse, that you got to be doing.
So what do you consider to be the top myth in terms of love and relationships?
I think the top myth, or at least the top myth that people tell themselves, is it's not really worth the time or energy. It's probably just going to make things worse if we talk. And this is two parts, because yes, if you have been talking about money with your partner and it's not going well, right? It creates tension, resentment, division, fighting. If you keep talking to them the same way, then you'll probably get the same outcome. But if you have a new conversation, then there is an opportunity for tremendous growth. And while most of my clients have really solid relationships in almost every other aspect, right, of their relationship, just money's a challenging one, I've worked with clients all across the spectrum. I've had clients who were going to get divorced if they couldn't figure this out. And even with that level of conflict, because money was their main issue, they made unbelievable progress, right? And I'm not just talking about financial. They paid off $26,000 of debt while we were working together. The wife restarted her business. But the biggest thing for me was that they went from the verge of divorce to just naturally referring to each other as their best friend. Something that hadn't been for years, largely driven by this tension around money. And for anyone listening who's like, well, that's a nice story, but it won't work for me. Again, those are the myths. Those are the walls we put up so that we don't have to confront the reality, right? We say, it's not going to work for me. It'll take too much time and energy. It's just going to make things worse. Not true. You are not born with a certain relationship with money. And even if you were, you can change it. But it's something that we've created, just like all of our other mindsets. We have a series of experiences and inputs and things we see and hear and read and learn. And we filter that through our brain and we come up with, this is how the world is. This is how this kind of person is. This is how this kind of thing works. Money is no different. And what does that mean for you? It means if you are doing the right types of inquiry, if you're having the right types of conversations, you and your partner absolutely 100% have the opportunity to change and grow. And in a way that I've seen time and again can make just a massive difference in the quality of your life and relation.
So what do you think is the biggest mistake couples make regarding their joint finances?
I think the biggest mistake is going straight to your numbers. If you, let's say you and your spouse are spending more than you like to spend, right, on every month, what's the first thing, your first instinct? Think, okay, what is my first instinct? I'm going to guess for most people listening, it's, let's go look at our expenses and try and cut some stuff. Let's maybe try and spend less on ordering takeout or whatever, right? It's not that is a thing not to do. It's not that you shouldn't examine how you're spending your money. first of all, my goal is not that you don't spend money or that you spend a little. It's that you spend it intentionally and mindfully, right? You're aware of how much something costs, how this decision impacts your goals, and how that affects your today and your future. But if you and your partner feel overwhelmed, one or both of you has anxiety around money, maybe there's tension or even you fight about money, if you go straight to trying to cut an expense, you're asking for a fight. And here's why. There's no real trust and safety around this topic, and money is an uncomfortable topic. I don't say that it's comfortable or fun off the bat. There's some work to do to move through the discomfort to get used to talking about this in a constructive way. But if you go straight to the numbers, because you and your partner are different people, right? That means you have different priorities, different preferences. So any one item you try and cut is going to be valued by each of you different. So maybe let's say, we should stop ordering from that sushi restaurant. Well, maybe you both like it, but you're willing to cut it because you like it, but it's not your top. But maybe for your spouse, it's their top restaurant. They're like, what are you talking about? No, absolutely not. Let's cut the sandwich place, right? Like the sushi place. No, I don't want to cut that. So you really need to start, if this is a difficult topic of conversation, start with just getting comfortable talking about it, taking small steps. That's why I encourage couples to have those conversations about their experiences with money and how it affected them and things that they've seen or learned or things that they've seen that they rejected around money. Because this is mostly just you describing your experiences and how they entered your brain. And so there's not really much to argue about there. And don't underestimate the power of having one or two or three conversations about money, even if they're 15, 20 minutes each, where they don't end in a fight and you don't walk away feeling worse than when you started. That alone will breed so much confidence, right? It's like the person who is scared of going to the gym, but they go one time and have a good workout and walk out, feeling strong. That makes so much difference just that one time, right? And so it's kind of similar thing here. So basically, to summarize, the biggest mistake that I see, to summarize, is couples who don't feel safe and comfortable talking about money together, that they go straight to the numbers to try and address the financial issues they're having. They go straight to trying to figure out what expenses to cut. Start by building that safety, building that trust, building that confidence that you can say something and your partner will understand it, and that their confidence that they can say something and you will understand it. And this will make a world of difference.
Well, as we're talking about budgeting, what do you consider to be values-based budgeting?
Spending your money with intention. Most of us, we're transacting in money every day. We might work 5-6 days a week to earn money. We're paying bills throughout the month. We are purchasing things throughout the month. I mean, all the time, right? So how do you do that in a way that aligns with your value? Well, that requires clarity on your values, clarity on your expenses, clarity on your income, clarity on how far along you are towards your goals and what it's going to take to achieve them. And with all of that, then you can actually look at your expenses, right, and say which ones are totally worth it. And maybe there's some in there that are like, oh my goodness, I don't even know why we are spending money on this, right? Like the most typical one in that category is a subscription you forgot that you had, whether it's to a streaming service or to an online account, that kind of thing. People forget they have these subscriptions and they're just getting debited every month. So going through that process can make such a difference, because the values-based budgeting process is such a difference maker, because it allows you to spend less on things that don't really matter to you that much or don't bring you much value or joy. And sometimes it might actually allow you to double down, to spend more money on the things that you really love, right? And if I can share a story, I had a client who, a wonderful couple, and they were both from the Philippines. They had immigrated to the US. And for them, they loved going out to eat. And it was one of their main expenses on a monthly basis. So they were thinking like, oh, I feel like we should cut that expense. And I said, okay, well, here's some things to think about. And we talked about being intentional, thinking about which things are worth it or not worth it for you. And they came back, and I also asked them to consider, why does going out to a restaurant, why is that important to you? What kind of joy or value does it bring to you? And they came back and they said, look, there are times when we just order in or go out because we're just like, I don't want to cook. I had worked a full day. I just don't feel like. Some of those we might work on because sometimes on those days we just go to the local place that's not really that good. But there's those other restaurants we go to that kick butt. And they said, you know what, Adam? We thought about it. We reflected on why. And being from Philippines, coming to the US and going to restaurants was like this really special event. And for them and their families, it meant that they had made it in a sense, right? They were able to go out to eat. Like, I guess this was something that they didn't really have much experience with when they were in the Philippines. And it still carried so much like joy and pride for them, in addition to the convenience and the yummy food. And so they said, you know what, Adam? I think we're actually going to spend more on dining out than we were before because it really brings us a lot of happiness. We're just going to make sure we're like pruning those few restaurants that are just like not really that great and really make sure that we're taking that money and going to the places that we really love. And I thought that was neat because it just shows you there's no one size fits all, right? My work is not cut your expenses. My work is what matters to you and how can we get the two of you working as a team to build a life around that what matters to you is at the center. And then everything else supports it. The way you two talk about money, the kinds of accounts you have, where you are allocating your funds on a regular basis. It's all about what matters most to you in the center. And we build everything around that.
Well, you just mentioned couples. Do you think couples should have joint accounts or separate accounts?
You have any thoughts on this one, Nigel, before I share?
You're my guest expert.
Fair enough. So I think that what couples should have is whatever helps them most achieve what matters to them, right? That, again, is the central cog. Now, we'll say, well, I don't know what joint or separate accounts have to do with investing for retirement or paying for my kids' education or taking vacations. Well, what they have to do with it is there's pros and cons to various structures, right? And in order for you to figure out what's best, that you're going to want to talk to your partner about these pros and cons as you see them. And think about, for example, joint accounts can be more efficient for paying joint bills. If you're, let's say, family, right, live in the same household. Okay, because we can just write one check or make one payment to the electric utility. But also, if we're putting all our money together in one account, then every time you spend money, if the way you spend that money annoys me, I'm going to be annoyed all the time because I'm seeing how you spend the money. Or in a much less problematic way, like if I want to buy you something for your birthday or for our anniversary, how am I going to do that? How do we accommodate that? And so what I really have my couples do, this question about what account structures, it comes towards the end of the program, right? It comes at a point when you feel comfortable talking to each other about these things. You understand where you're at financially. You understand where you want to get to. You have a plan about how to get there. And then you look and you say, what kinds of account structures are going to help me achieve this plan in the most efficient way possible that brings me peace of mind around money, that helps us work well as a team, and that gives us clarity about our financials. And when you have that whole foundation there already, there's a lot more information to work with in making this decision, right? Because a lot of times, whether or not we're conscious of it, if you have this fear about being controlled or about commingling assets or about somebody taking, a partner taking advantage of you, you'll convince yourself and then try to convince your partner why separate accounts are a good idea. And maybe if you're afraid, of course, this stuff can go different ways, right? Maybe you're afraid of abandonment at some deep level. And so you want to have joint accounts because you want to hold everything really tight and you don't want to let your partner go even for a second. It's not to say that joint accounts or separate accounts are good or bad, but if the choices you're making are being driven by narratives that you may either one, not even be aware of, but two, even if you're aware of them, they're not really the most important thing to you, or maybe sometimes not even the healthiest thing, then it doesn't always serve you. Whereas if you can come to this discussion from a place of, I love you, I'm excited for the life we're building together, we are working as a team around these key goals that involve money, and here's what we're up to. Okay, so if we do joint accounts, what would that do for us? Good, bad, ugly. If we do separate accounts, same thing. What if we do a mix of them? Okay, right? And then there's as many options as your creativity can come up with in your brain. But most of the couples I talk to and work with tend to fall in either everything together, everything separate, and person one pays the bill and then person two sends them, let's say, half or whatever percentage. Or the mixed option usually looks like each of us has an individual account, and then we have a shared account for whatever expenses are shared. And then each month we either make a deposit there from our personal account, or we put our paychecks in there and then take some out for our personal. Those are the main structures that I see. But of course, it's all really customizable to your needs and preferences.
Well, I read recently that the top reason for divorce is money. So is that true? And if it is true, why is that?
Well, all the studies I've seen, it's basically always in the top 3 that people name. And it's an issue in many of the divorces, even if it's not the number one issue, right? It's often one of the top few. So yes, I mean, it is absolutely high up on the list. And that's, why I think it's an important thing for people to take seriously. Why? Well, to pull bits and pieces from what I've been saying before, we're dealing with money, earning or spending all day, every day. It's just a fact of life living in the capitalist world that we live in. So that's one thing, right? So if there's tension and conflict around money in a small way, it's like the bear is being poked 5 times a day. I pick up takeout. I'm at work. I get gas to fill up the car. Every time there's like a part of your brain that is like, right? Like, because you have this tension and around money with yourself and your partner or both. So it's hitting you all the time. That's one reason it really can wear you down. Relatedly, money is really important to achieving your goals. If you are not managing your money in a way that allows you to achieve your goals, it can lead to a sense of stagnation in your relationship. We're not static humans, and our relationships, if they're static, they wither. And, they become like that leaf on a tree that was once bright green and now is like starting to brown. And so it's essential to be on the same page so that you can be achieving goals and working together and moving your relationship forward together. And then third, and this is usually what people tell me the most as well, is that money is just such a hard topic for people. And it is not just about money for them, right? It invokes ideas of security. If we don't have money in a fund just sitting there and we are paying, high interest rates on our credit card debt, I don't feel secure. I don't feel safe. If I don't feel secure and safe, why am I even here? Bye. See ya. What's the point? Money is so intertwined with our value, what we want to achieve, what matters to us, what security looks like. Obviously, it has so much to do with trust, especially to the degree you're sharing money with your partner. So when it doesn't go well, not only are you missing out on the teamwork, not only are you hurting your finances, but your trust, your intimacy, your sense of safety and security with that person, it starts to wane. And that's a problem. That's a big problem for our relationships, right? I mean, I don't think we have to say too much more about why it's a problem. Right? Those are the key building blocks of a healthy partnership: is trust, accountability, intimacy, honesty, transparency. Money is a place where all of those things can be done anywhere from really well in a way that strengthens your relationship, or it can be done really poorly in a way that really harms your relationship.
So what advice would you give to a couple who are living together and struggling with their finances?
A lot of this is contextual, but I would say the first thing to do is, if you are able to talk to each other about money and it goes okay, it's not like a hot mess, not a disaster, then go, even if you do this as individuals, go and figure out, how much money am I bringing in? Where am I spending that money? And how much of it am I spending? And then what debts do I owe? This is the most important stuff. And then if you have anything that is of value, any assets, you want to calculate that too. I had a client who has a 6-figure collection of like art and knives and things like this, and also a bunch of credit card debt. So sometimes people don't realize oh, wow, wait, maybe I could, if I sell some of that or liquidate it, it can really help. So getting clear on those things. If you two don't feel like you can talk about money yet, just get that piece started. And like I said, I think the first question is like, how was money handled growing up in your house? And how do you think that influenced the way you think about money today? And just share, open up. Don't worry about trying to fix things right away or solve things right away. Now, listen, obviously it's a different ball of wax if you're worried about keeping the lights on, and this whole like, oh, let's find intimacy around talking about money is not your first priority. And that's a different situation. Looking at how much you're making and then what you're spending and how much, like what you're spending your money on and how much you're spending of it, that exercise will at least allow you to have this awareness and clarity so that you can be thoughtful about the choices you're making. If you really give it a rigorous look and you say, okay, well, my shortfall is $150 a month, then if I want to make sure I'm keeping the lights on, I want to find a way to generate at least $150 more a month. And then that'll start to open up possibilities, because it's very easy to get stuck inside of a mindset where you already have these challenges and your mindset basically doubles down and makes them feel even more difficult to overcome, right? And I am passionate about and talk a lot about the disparities in wages and wealth that fall along gender lines and racial lines, that women are paid less than men, that white people are paid more also for the same work I'm talking about than other people of color or whatever background or ethnicity. And so these things are real and they exist and they influence people's lives. However, the question is, given all of that, what can I do to strengthen my situation? And that clarity about what's coming in and what's going out is often the first place that you start, because it gets you being proactive. It gets you looking for solutions and thinking of ideas, because otherwise this can be a very heavy topic, right? And if you're struggling financially, you can get submerged in it. And it is really, really, really difficult. But again, there is so much difference in people's situations and circumstances that there's no one size fits all advice. But I think when it comes to couples, that awareness of what's going on with your money and building the trust to talk about these topics will help out. I like to say the only thing worse than struggling financially is struggling financially and doing it without your best friend, the person who you chose to marry or commit your life to. And, oh my God, I don't even have them on my side. Versus if you're struggling financially, it's no fun. It stinks. But at least if you have your partner, your best friend on your side and you're working together, that can change the experience in a really important way and just even help preserve your mental health. Because this stuff, it can be taxing on your mental health.
I imagine that some of your coaching sessions can be quite intense. So what other interests do you have to kind of unwind?
It really depends on when you talk to me. I'm a guy who I get really interested in something and passionate about it and do it a lot. And then at some point I'm like, okay, next. I've always been a huge sports fan, and now I do some speculating in the world of investing in sports cards and trading cards. Certainly I adore playing with my nephew, who's about to be 1.5 years old at the time of recording, and hanging out with my fiance and my family, just taking it easy, the usual stuff. Watching shows on the streaming service, going for a walk, that kind of thing. Nothing too wild, but those things matter a lot to me. And of course, for my whole life, music has been with me. I have been playing piano since I'm 4. So I love to just sit down and play for my own reasons. But I've also created a host of what I call personal finance parodies. And I take popular songs, rewrite the lyrics to be related to personal finance, and I play the piano and I sing the lyrics, and in one that'll hopefully be coming soon, in that case, rap the lyrics. And I have a lot of fun with it. I love to bring my personality into my work because, like you said, this stuff can be intense. My sessions can be intense, and it's important and essential that my clients feel safe with me and like they can trust me. And so letting them in on who I am, right, through my music and seeing a little bit of my, like, what I think is my clever but goofy side, I think that helps them to get over that hump, because there's millions of people out there who, when they hear me talk, they're like, there's a part of their brain like, oh, that guy might have something of value. But it takes something to actually go and sign up for a free consultation, or take my free quiz, or subscribe to my podcast or social media channel. That actually takes something, because we know if we're being exposed to this topic and it's one that's a challenge for you and your partner, at some point that tension's going to build, and you're either going to be like, I got to stop following Adam, or I got to do some of the things he's suggesting to see if I can work on. You can bury your head in the sand, but once you're seeing me posting every day on social media or listening to the new podcast episode every week, you're like, oh crap, we're dealing with that. All right. Okay. Right. So you create that like cognitive dissonance, or whatever you want to call it, that you kind of got to do something or stop following me. Right. So sometimes the music videos just kind of lower the walls enough so that people take that next step, whatever it might be that's right for them.
So Adam, how can people contact you?
I mentioned a moment ago a free quiz that I have, and I really recommend everybody starts there. My website is couplesfinancialcoach.com. And so to take the free quiz, it's couplesfinancialcoach.com/quiz. Basically, it's a free quiz. It'll take you 2 or 3 minutes. I recommend you and your partner do it individually. And based on your answers, I tell you your couple's money personality type, which basically describes how well you two are communicating about money and how well you know each other's finances and things like that. And depending on whichever type you get, then there's a different tool specific to people who are dealing with the kinds of things you're dealing with that's going to help you elevate to the next level. So that's where I recommend everyone starts. From there, you can find my contact info, my email address, a link to schedule a complimentary consultation, or even to check out the episodes of my podcast, the Couples Financial Coach podcast, which are posted to my website, but also on all the most popular libraries, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Libsyn, etc.
Adam in Florida, USA, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Another In Conversation podcast coming soon.